What is going on, everybody? I'm here to bring you back another video. Hope you guys can hear me good. And as you can see by the title, trying to explain the Blair Witch. And I want to get into the theory of it, the myths, the mentos of it. And I'm going to try to deliver. I'm going to try to spread some light to bring justice to it. And remember what I can. So we're going to be focused on the games. The games come first because the movies are set in present day, but the games are not. So, and there's a lot of things over the time that got changed up because we do know when it comes to legends and myths, the stories always get changed in some kind of way. Some kind of details either change to this or that. And I noticed that because they did focus on that with the games and the movies if you pay attention. So, we're going to start where the third game is set during your mountain man era. I want to say your native era. I want to say probably like maybe 20 years at the most in the game during the Silver War. And it's part 3 is a short one. And because it's so short, there's not so much to explain in it. But what can be pointed out is this person's story that falls through the first game at that. So we do know there's this guy that I forget the name because a lot of these names are forgettable anyways. But this guy that lives in the woods right near the mountains, they get the story. He's telling a story about a witch. Right? But he doesn't know it's a witch yet. And at least that's what the game and the movies want us to think, but what they're trying to point out to us. But they're giving us little breadcrumbs here and there. And they snatch it right back. And I'll be getting to what I think it is after I explain this. A kid goes missing. Now we know this was a native child. So, which then doesn't make sense because our main antagonist isn't native. It says his son. Well, unless it doesn't explain anything about the wife, but we know this child went missing in the woods. And you have to understand that sometimes you really won't be able to find anybody in the woods. So, we do know that this guy, he doesn't find his son. The son was eventually killed, but his soul was sacrificed. The father never finds the witch because when he goes into these woods, he stumbles into another dimension. So, it's another dimension, kind of like a time portal, right? Coffin Rock focuses on these first 3 games about this portal and time travel. Now, I'm going to stop here for a second. What sounds so familiar about time travel and different dimensions? Where have we heard this stuff from? And what sci-fi fiction with what movies that take place in space, like Star Trek, Star Wars, Dragon Ball Z, Aliens, right? So when we get to part 2 takes place during the Civil War days. Okay? Takes place during the Civil War era. Around this time, the story of the Blair Witch is already created. There's a So it starts out with the guy fighting, of course, in Civil War, gets ricocheted in the head by a bullet, and he wakes up maybe a couple months later. And this is interesting, right? This is interesting what happens, because it focuses on something in part two of Blair Witch, just like in part three, if you pay attention, because it focuses on this game. Guys remember the story when they heard about in part one of the movie where you hear about a little girl getting grabbed by a hand that comes out the water? They actually focus and show that in part two of this game, right? Well, if you take a look in part three of Blair Witch, right, of the movie, what comes out of the water? Not a hand. We know it's something that comes out, but we don't see the hand when that girl got her foot cut. And it seems to be a some kind of a creature in her skin, in her feet, right? If you guys also pay attention, part three of the movie, we see a hand coming out the tree itself that knocks that up, that knocks the same chick down, douche, right? Things of that nature. Same thing with the hand grabbing the woman that's escaping and trying to escape out the house when she's in that tunnel underneath, right? What do we know that can blend in? What? Yet again, from sci-fi, from fiction, what do we know that can do that? Aliens. If you pay attention to like some alien movies, right? Now, during part two of the game, the little girl's gone missing. Why? She sacrificed the coffin rock, her soul. The Civil War guy, we are getting present day with him and past, because we're learning how he got ricocheted in the head and what his men went through when they were in the woods. As you know, it's North versus South, obviously, in the Civil War. This movie so happens to take place in the South. Like the game. Well, if you look up where the town is, it's near in New York. And they know, oh, we're going up north. So that's one thing of the continuity that was changed along with the legend. That several things. No witch yet, but a witch was made, supposedly. Supposed to take place in the South, within the forest itself and everything. The movie comes along, and it's up north. So, yet again, which one is it? You know, we don't know, because they changed it on us now. But we know now from part two of the game, South. They ain't mentioned anything about being up north in this game. Take place down south in the war, right? A lot of things I explained in part one of the game of the movie, from hands, from the force coming alive, and from time being stopped. Now, from time being stopped, yet again, time travel, right? His men do get killed off. As we go to the present day, we know that, you guys remember, if anybody's seen part 3, then you guys would know what that one guy said, that you have to listen to her. She tells you what to do. You have to obey to survive, or something like that. That sounds like what? Mimicking, brainwashing, and possession. Right? This happens to this guy in this game. He takes children to Coffin Rock. Ain't nobody can find Coffin Rock when they search for it. Not until the first movie. We don't know why that is yet. Once we get to the forest, one of the forest part, we actually see an old woman. This is the same old woman that's in the first opening of this game that's taking care of the Civil War guy. It's make us believe that she's the witch. No, she is now possessed by the entity. Has to be stopped, have to be taken down. She is still alive. Well, she wasn't killed, but what was possessing her was defeated. During the end of the game, the little girl's already dead. Or they want us, she died, but she come back to life. Yet again, doesn't make sense, right? Because we hear about a little girl that went missing in the woods in part 1, coming right back on her doorstep. Didn't never focus on any of that part. But the witch has, or it's not a witch, because what they show us is the birth of the development of Coffin Rock, which starts off with a small layer of rocks that builds up to it. And it's focused by a green glowing light. Keep this in mind, green glowing light. What movies in sci-fi fiction have we seen something with a green glowing light? Aliens, right? So, with that part being said, we learn the witch's name in this. We learn this entity's name. We learn about a weakness to it, which is interesting because none of this was ever, yet again, this had to be lost over time when it came to the movies. So we get to the first game. It takes place in the 60s. And this is interesting. This is what really throws it through a really curveball. So we know by now, I had something to drink. I don't know what happened to it. Anyways, so to throw us for a curveball in this, we start off at a place called the Whore House. Not as in being a hooker, but in scary wise. And this woman's going through a training level, taking down, and yes, you guys are going to hear me right, taking down zombies with well-equipped armed guns that shouldn't even be around in the 60s. Huh. Now, I know what you guys are saying. What do zombies and witches have to do with each other? Well, before, the zombies as we know today through coming back from the dead from a chemical virus, being bitten, turned into a zombie. That's what zombies are to us. That's how we were introduced to it. But way back before we were born, during our grandparents, when they were kids coming up, zombies were possessed people by witches. Because witches would use to possess of the dead or of the living to quote-unquote make, mindless zombies as their slaves. So there's that. So if there are zombies in this universe, does that mean Night of the Living Dead could fit in this? That's the only thing I can see really fitting into that continuity. That's the only thing I can see. And if this is so, then are we going to get this focused in a previous film? We may not never know. We do know from what we learn that the entity of whatever it could be can control and haunt your dreams. It can brainwash you in it as well. So at this game, we learn that there's time travel involved. We learn that the entity, whatever it could be, does not mess with the Native Americans. Because there's natives that did live in that land within the forest. In the first movie, not anymore. But we don't get answers to that. As we get along through rest of the story in this first game, we know there's a lot of time travel involved, a lot of space and time, different dimensions in this. We know the house can come and go as it pleases, can cloak itself, if you will. What can cloak itself? What can come and go as it pleases that can blend in? A spaceship, right? So, as we're figuring this out, we're learning that she's separated into two things. Half of her is trapped in this dimension, other half of her is going around lowering little kids to get them killed to sacrifice. We do know also that a preacher was involved with killing kids as well in this game. We know that a school of kids, like literally, when I mean a school of kids, like the whole classroom of kids just got killed. That's something. That's going a little bit too much for me, but I ain't, they don't show it, but they explain it to where you get an idea in your head. We hear about a man that got arrested for these killings that lived in the Blair house. What have we seen and focused on that before? The Bell Witch, the Blair house, right? A man that was executed for murder of children. This is actually a real story with that part. There was a guy that lived in a house in the woods and called the Blair house, East Tennessee. Blair, not Bell, Bell Witch. Serving as somebody, as he puts it, a witch. Voices. Never saw the witch. Clues leading to everything. Having the kids put their handprints on the wall. So we learn. So now we figure out why are their handprints all over this place. They're from the little kids that got killed. That's leaving their mark. That's their territory. Their spirits are trapped inside this house. And eventually you do get killed in this game. You do die at the end of it. You get killed by the Force monsters. So, we never see a witch. We know that there's zombies. There's time travel and cloaking involved. But we learn that this evil entity has been here before the dinosaurs. We do learn that in this game. And that it came from nobody knows where. Which is very interesting to me. Very interesting. And for a reason. In the first movie, we do know that the spirit of the kids, right, that are lost and gone, are traveling to these portals, to these dimensions, for our first three survivors from the first movie. They automatically stumble on to the house. Now the sticks. Now this is going. This is where it gets confusing for me. In the game, we learn that you can use those voodoo sticks against the witch as weapons to defeat her. We also learn that in part 2 of the game, right? In the third movie, that's supposed to represent the people in the woods. Supposed to like say if whoever's watching this video, okay, let's say it's me and whoever's watching this video and several of your friends. Let's say there's 5 of us, right? Well, each of those 5 voodoo sticks that hang up represent us to have either a piece of clothing or hair from our DNA. We do know by breaking that, we get killed and break in half as well. We also learn this in the first game going into the second game as well. But if they can be used against a witch, where was that? That had to be yet again, like I said, taken out and retold. In a way, like I said, when it comes to legends, urban myths, their stories are going to be retold. Things are going to be taken out and replaced with things. So it would be kind of hard to pinpoint the original origins of different stuff, right? Like, how did this develop? How did this develop? Because there's always going to be plot holes. There's always going to be things that ain't going to make sense, and you're going to try to make sense of it eventually, or kind of have it where it makes sense to you. And we do know where she finds Heather, I think her name is, finds Josh is one of his body parts with his clothing, right? So we do know he's killed, but we don't know where he is. Now, yeah, granted, there is the theory that Josh and his friend set Sarah up, because in the website, I don't know if the website is still up, but during the Blair Witch website, for the hype of the movie and everything, they put out journals to make you think it was like really happening, to where Sarah and Josh were once boyfriend and girlfriend, and that they broke up, and that the two guys set her up to kill her and left her in the house. Well, that don't make sense to me. I take that back. It does make sense, but if Josh is dead, how do you explain standing in the corner in the first movie not turning around? Well, we get that answer in the third movie. You have to do what she says. And we got to remember, the big guy, he was starting to lose it, but he had calm at the same time. So we get an idea that something was in his head telling him to do something. So when we saw him in the corner, he was following directions to live. Because they say, you can stand in the corner, you're going to live. Just don't look, don't make eye contact. But obviously you're going to have stupid victims. But we do know things can mimicate voices, right? Like really mimic them. In the second movie, now there was some issues with the company. That's why there was what they did. The guy that made the movie, the company that he made it with, went behind his back and shot other scenes to the other different movie and put it out as the Book of Shadows. And he decided to put out the original shots he did himself with the original film online. Like I said, they're two different movies, and they did go behind his back. So there is the real uncut version that you can get off Amazon, and it really focuses on a proper sequel. And he did sue the people that did that too. He did sue the company that he worked with that did do that behind his back. But they wanted to leave little. There is a video explaining the Book of Shadows, right? Just type it in on YouTube. It's the Blair Witch 2, the Book of Shadows explained, and it sheds light on it to where it makes you think: did it happen? Did it not happen? Was there possessions going on? Was there something else here at work going on? And they leave little hidden clues that we all missed. And that's interesting. That's what sheds light on it. But as we get into the third movie, people are trapped, the soul's trapped, and this thing can take form and possess who it wants, is a man or a woman. During this movie, when we get to the end, yet again we're hearing about time travel, people getting lost in the woods, going into another dimension. Hold up, I'll be right back. I gotta let the dog in. I'm here. Oh shit. Oh. Alright, sorry about that, people. But anyway, so we learn about these, the woods shifting, the woods changing. During the part of the movie, we get this. If you listen closely, you can hear a humming when that big bright light comes through the house. That what are they pointing at? Especially when you see the quote-unquote witch. From what we can put together, the last victim that was killed was Heather. Heather was transformed into a creature, stretched, and made into what looks like a tree person. right? So, also, we know things can mimic sounds, mimic voices. So, Heather's body's gone. Her spirit is trapped. Can't get out of this dimension, of this portal. After it's all said and done, the house disappears. Right? The house disappears. Where they parked the trucks was the original property ground where the school was in the first game, was the original entrance as well. So I like that they pointed that out. Somebody was obviously paying attention to the first game, and they wanted they wanted to see if anybody could get that in that third movie. Why did they park their vehicles there? Why is that space over there that bare and that empty? Why was there such a perfect entrance? Because that's where the school once was, and then back of the school was the original entrance into those woods. That's why a lot of those kids went disappearing, right? And we do know after some people disappear, they leave footage. They leave either paper or footage into the woods, into the living portal, into the living timeline, so it can lure more victims. Like I said, they've given us little breadcrumbs to tell us what it really is, but pull it right back at us. They take it away from us. And this is my theory. This is my conclusion. To me, there's not a witch, right? So if you put it together, bright lights, humming sound, portals, time travel, blending in with the force, hands coming out of the water, trees, house comes and goes, disappears, cloaks itself. Sounds like a spaceship, right? I'm gonna say it's aliens. I believe that the movie that they're going for is to show us that it's really aliens. Because they're trying to point at little hints here and there. And that's what I like about that. Especially the one where they describe a creature with, like a woman, but they made it sound more like a creature with fur. Right? Wasn't human. Yeah, there's several things that can be not human. Right? A monster or an alien. So my conclusion to the Blair Witch, that it's not a witch. That it's renegade aliens that have been on the earth since before the dawn of dinosaurs till now, that obviously had their technology on earth do whatever they did to stop time travel, portals, disappearing, changing people, trapping somebody's soul, all this and that, bright lights, humming sound, to where we do know that there's no, like I said, no, there's good people, there's bad people, just like there's good aliens and there's bad aliens. And living off the stories from the people, let's make them think that we're a witch, but they ain't. Right? Especially when the drone gets stuck and crashes into the tree. We don't see nothing grab it. We don't see nothing slam. We don't see nothing hit it. It gets beamed, like kind of beamed down into the tree, like a magnet force. Like, okay, we gotta make you crash. So here's that. Right? What has that technology? Aliens have that technology. And there are so many clues that point out that this is actually aliens. So it's not a witch, it's not an evil entity, it's not something that's demonic and possessed. One part of it also is that I believe the aliens might be possessed as well through something demonic that's taking control of them to make them do this. So there's that one as well. But a lot of it's pointing out to it being aliens that are possessed by some kind of strong demonic being that's making them do this and having the people think that it's a witch, and it's not. You know, if we do get a fourth Blair Witch movie or fourth game, I doubt we're going to get a lot of it answered anyway. We'll probably get more of it answered betterly in a game, since you have more time and more development, in my opinion, for the characters than you do a movie. Because a movie's only going to be like almost 2.5 hours, and that's not enough time. But if we do, I hope it focuses on something with that, because that's what they're pointing towards, man. And you know, if you think like, hey, if you guys really think about it, like, like you can go on YouTube, type in the Blair Witch game, part 1, 2, and 3. Watch the gameplay of them, but pay attention to the story. Pay attention to the hints and the clues that they're giving you. After you get done doing that, watch movie 1, 2, and 3, and then put it together, and you'll see, and it'll make sense. Like, it might just actually end up being aliens, because that's what you're going to say to yourself, and that's what a lot of people are going towards. Because there's a lot of videos that are saying this is not a witch, and it does make sense once you put it together. Now, there's another Blair Witch game. It takes place right after the first movie, but I know I can't find it, and something have to do with like some kind of piece of paper or something like that, or I'm not quite too sure. You have to collect like pieces of paper. And this is where I know what game they're talking about. This is not the Slender Man one. It's not the 8 pages. No, Slender Man 8 pages. That's where they got their idea from this Blair Witch game. It has some that what was it? I think it's either is Blair Witch 8 pages, or 12 pages, because it's a game that takes place right after the first movie, where it picks off at like, you know, people hunting, people searching, this and that. But not too many people know about that game, so it's going to be kind of hard to find footage of that. But you know, as they're pointing things out, and you see these kids, especially in the first game, which I left out and I forgot till now, is that think about it. You're in a house. That's a ship. You're going through these portals that you find out about. You're learning about this time travel to where time stops, and about kids going into woods and never being seen again. Does that mean some of them got killed? Does it mean some of them may have survived, but they can't age? That might be so, because during the part where you're finding paper, you're finding clues in this house in the first game, you see kids walking through the house and another little portal dimension and stuff like that. Like, they don't even know what's going on. And some of them see you and they stop and talk to you. But they don't know that times has changed, or they don't know that they're dead. They just know they're little kids and they haven't grown up, and they think it's still the same day that they went to the woods in. And that's creepy in its own way. But like I said, I'm going on a limb here and saying it's aliens, man, that are possessed by some kind of evil, demonic presence, obviously. Because we see what the creature looks like in the third movie for a glimpse, and it looks like a creature from outer space. We do know Coffin Rock is gone, because no one can find Coffin Rock, obviously. Because they go past the streaming lake in the same spot in the third movie where the first one took place at, where they were crossing it. We do know that the log is gone and Coffin Rock ain't there. Why? Because it's in another timeline. It's in another dimension of another portal. So this is about the much exact conclusion I can give, and my thoughts on it, my theories, and I hope I try to make it make sense to you guys. And I hope you guys enjoy the video. I'm out.